Everyone. This is A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald, and on behalf of LearMedia.tv and the British and Irish Trading Alliance, welcome to the show. As ever, A Bit of Business is all about bringing interesting people and interesting topics together for the BITA community and our wider business audience. Our interesting topic today is connecting. At its most basic level, this is all about our need as social beings to stay in touch with one another on a physical and emotional level. In the business context, this is all about getting and staying in front of the customers, colleagues, and stakeholders that can help you grow your business. However, with so many of us very used to seeing customers and colleagues face to face on a daily basis, I think it is fair to say that staying connected has been a massive challenge for most businesses over the past 15 months as a result of the pandemic. So how do we remain connected in a post-COVID world where remote working is likely to be with us for the foreseeable future? Our special guests today, Paul Whitnell, Paul Mirage, and Ian Frost, will help us dig into this and other questions. Paul Whitnell is the president of BITA, a master connector and the chief architect of the growth of BITA across Ireland, the UK, and internationally. Well known across the BITA community, he is the respected face of the organization. BITA member Paul Mirage is the director of Greater Manchester Business Connect magazine, a B2B bi-monthly publication that is available free to pick up in 250 outlets across the northwest of England. It's a terrific publication and is a must-read for people in business, going out to more than 15,000 online subscribers with news on business topics across a multiple number of subjects. BITA member Ian Frost is the UK Managing Director of Vancula Agency, a creative digital marketing team that prides itself on delivering quality work at very competitive rates. Ian, by his own admission, is a straight-talking northerner and has been in sales, marketing, and business development for over 30 years. He uses his years of experience to help SME business leaders grow their businesses through mentoring, coaching, and lead generation, always seeking to do more for his clients. He is also a recognized LinkedIn expert and knows how to leverage that particular platform to help businesses succeed. That's it, folks. As ever, please do remember to visit the BITA website, bita.ie, for updates on members and upcoming events, particularly as some construction networking lunch dates have changed. Paul, and Ian coming up next. Please do stay tuned. And we're live, gentlemen. Welcome to the show, and let's get started. And of course, the burning question of the day, gentlemen, is on everybody's minds, and I guess we better address it right from the start. Now, it's a touchy one, perhaps, but we have to ask the question. Scotland versus England tomorrow night. Who's going to win? Paul Mirage.
It's going to be the Three Lions for me. I'll be wearing the shirt. I've got the Euro 1996 shirt. So Three Lions for me.
Ian?
100% England, of course.
Not that you're objective about this topic at all. Mr. Whitnell, as Switzerland in this conversation, what do you think?
Well, it's a banana skin, isn't it? Because the result that Scotland had in the first game took the momentum out of what they're doing. But look, they're the diehards, they're the brave hearts, and it's a banana skin. So it's going to be a great match. It's going to be a great atmosphere and great to see crowds back enjoying that. Great to see people. It reminds me of 1996 when I witnessed my first real World Cup in Ireland when Jack Charlton, had a great run, and the atmosphere in the country and what it lifted up. And right now people need lifting, because Boris isn't doing a great job at lifting, is he? So this is what the country needs. So, but it is a banana skin.
Fair enough. Okay, duly noted. Guys, our theme today is connecting. And pre-pandemic, this was a fairly straightforward enough task, I think. Reach out to somebody, set a meeting date, and then usually most people would sit down for a face-to-face business discussion. However, this has been almost impossible for the past 15 months. So let me start with Paul W. on this one, and then I'll go to Paul M. and on to you, Ian. Paul, as we start to return to some degree of normality, what do you think businesses have lost or gained since the start of the pandemic, and what are the implications for businesses going forward?
I think, if we say, what have you lost and what have you found? What this pandemic has done to a lot of people is it's pressed a reset button in us all, that we look at our lives differently. A lot of us were running or racing around and using up resource that we didn't need to use, whether it was environmental or otherwise. And there was that realization, when this pandemic hit, that there was a lot of changes needed to cope with the situation, which people did. But for us as an organization, there was a monumental change from a point of view of it put really the emphasis on being stronger together and that togetherness. So the values of BITA, which are integrity, passion, and delivery, were reinstilled really. And these two gentlemen who are on the screen with me today are a great example of people who come together with their talents, with their skills, with their capital knowledge, and they play a part and a role in an organization that do stick together and work together. And together we're stronger, and that's a fact. And whether it's a family, whether it's a team, whether it's a company, that statement stands by all of those three, that together we are actually stronger. And BITA has become that strength now in terms of what we need in terms of resilience to get beyond the next stage, because there's lots of things that are outside of the pandemic that are very difficult at the moment. And we're seeing massive price increases in the marketplace. We're seeing massive product shortages in the marketplace. We're seeing resources in terms of labor stretched, and we're seeing massive problems that were always there, but were perhaps brushed under the carpet because there was other things on the agenda. And now they still have to be dealt with. And, the only way we can do this is by becoming a stronger collective and looking at these things from a practical perspective and finding solutions, no matter how small the solution is, and building on that. And that's what BITA does.
Paul M., same question to you. In your view, what have businesses lost or gained during the pandemic, and what do you see as some of the implications moving forward?
In mine as a magazine that dealt a lot with hospitality. We all know that hospitality has had a real good kick in here, and all those contacts that we had, the BDMs, the people that you could go to, the go-to people that would get things done, some of them are lost now. They've taken other jobs, which is detrimental for business to do networking at those venues, and that's really, really sad. And speaking to general managers in the industry, they're finding it difficult to get staff at the moment. And you've got senior management working as waiting on tables at the moment, and it's very sad. But what we've got to do is, as Paul Whitnell said, is work together, help each other, be there for each other.
So would you say that's the opportunity for businesses moving forward, this spirit of collaboration? Do you think that has been surfaced during this pandemic, and we'll see a lot more of that in the coming months?
I definitely think cooperation, collaboration is very, very important now. It really, really is. And I think those that built up relationships has got a bit stronger, because you can ring those people that you've met before. And this is where, you've got your Zoom, you've got your team, you've got Remo, but you can't beat face to face. Simple as, you can't beat face to face. Look at the whites of the eye of somebody and say, I want to do business with you. You can't beat it. Simple as that.
Ian, your thoughts on this question?
I would concur with what both of the Pauls have said. I think I would probably come at it from a slightly different angle from my own personal perspective, in that lockdown and the pandemic has actually sort of indirectly benefited me, if I'm being truthful with you, John, in that I've met so many people on Zooms and online that I wouldn't have met beforehand. And a good example is in the room today. 13 months ago, I didn't know you guys. Now I know, I feel like I know you all, and lots of people in BITA so well it's not true. Now, I've had the pleasure of meeting Paul W face to face, not you two guys face to face, and I've met a number of the people in BITA face to face. But I think we've formed such a strong sense of community, and I think for all it's bad, and there's no doubt it's been a very challenging time, and there but for the grace of God, could have gone I or you in hospitality or bricks and mortar retailing. My heart goes out to these people and these businesses and people who've got the commitment levels they have with an ever-changing landscape where it seems everything's always against you. But I think certainly in the business community online, and with the example of BITA, we've all come together and we've made such strong friendships and such great connections with people. We were commenting this morning about, with the 4-week putback, can't come down, for example, and meet the many people in London that I've got to know so well over the Friday morning meetings in many months of this year. And I'm really disappointed that I can't come and see them a week on Friday. But I look forward to seeing them on 23rd of July. Fingers crossed. But it's just great. So I think it's been a reset, as Paul M said. I think it's been when people have looked at themselves and thought, well, really, what do I want to do with my business? What do I want to do with my life? In my case, for reasons I won't bore you with. But I think it's really brought people together who are the right people, and I think it's also shown people who've got a sense of community and a sense of purpose. And people by people, it's an old cliche, but it's true. And I think we've all had to do that online. And I think now, certainly in my case, lots of the relationships that we formed, we can't wait now to sort of consummate them, if you like, face to face over a drink. So I think it's going to be great when we do that with lots of people. So it's I think we'll all look back on this time in years to come and go, wow, remember then? It changed all our lives, didn't it?
So Ian, you spend a fair amount of time, and you're a well-known expert on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn has been there for a number of years, pre-pandemic. But during the pandemic, did you see a massive or a significant change in activity on LinkedIn as businesses realized, okay, can we leverage this platform and tool a little bit more effectively to drive our business growth in the absence of having that face-to-face communication?
Oh, totally, John. I mean, people who'd never used the platform properly or had not realised that the strength and the value of it, really, if their sales force had effectively been decapitated in terms of not being able to go out and see people, if people then wanted to reach out to new customers, totally people had to examine all the online media and look at it afresh in many instances. And I think LinkedIn's engagement, if you look at all their statistics and all their data, it just went up through the roof. And I think what's happened is an awful lot of people have learned how to use the platform properly, whether they've done it under their own steam or with outside help with people like myself. It really has brought a lot of people to the platform who will use it now for a lifetime. So as I was saying before about life changing for us all, I'm sure it's been life changing for LinkedIn, and I can say that because, as many of your viewers might be aware, they changed the rules of engagement a few months ago, whereby you can only reach out to less people than you were able to, and they've become very confident, I would say, in their outlook about the value of their platform and restricting some of the accessibility to some people, which is really the ultimate testimony of how people have used it. But it's a very, very powerful medium. If anybody's watching this and doesn't use it at present as a main source of lead generation, particularly in B2B markets, they're missing a trick. It's very, very powerful. But I think the thing about LinkedIn, it's exactly the same as face-to-face network or what we're doing now. You've got to go on a journey of people from know to like to trust. And if you think about how many times a message pops into your inbox asking for a connection, and dare I say it, I'll probably get a few brickbats, but recruitment is one that springs to mind, where it could be a case of, not everybody, I hasten to add, but oh, do I do this? I know what's going to happen. Click the connect, and then bang, in comes the 4-paragraph monologue straight away. You've got to nurture an audience. It's no different to talking to people face to face. So one of the analogies I've used in seminars is that if you went to a network meeting and you met somebody of the opposite sex, you wouldn't propose marriage to them within 15 minutes, would you? Well, the same thing's true of business. You can't just pitch your wares straight away. You've got to get to know people. You've got to build trust with them and see where the opportunities lie. So answering your question, I've diverted a bit, apologies. It's become a massive, even more pivotal focus for lots of people. And if it's used correctly, it will achieve great results. But there are still some who are not using it properly.
Paul M., I'll come to you in a second because I have the same question for you in relation to your print magazine, which is a completely different medium. But before I do that, Paul W., you were the champion for the transition of BITA into the virtual world, and you sort of were the cheerleader from the front, right? We have to do something to keep some momentum going in the organization. Can you reflect on that journey and the transition? And now looking forward, is it going to be the same? Is it a hybrid? What do you think the future holds for us in regards to the way BITA will communicate with its membership?
Well, first of all, I'm very vocal about this in terms of I'm totally allergic to this. Absolutely. I break out in a rash every morning. I have to go on a screen, and it's just like, absolutely. I mean, finish this, please, or finish me. It's hard going. But that said, it was something we needed to do. So we needed to create the whole trust of a platform that was capable of doing as close to we could imagine in terms of replicating what the luncheons were. This week, we got the news that the luncheon was cancelled again in London, and it was devastating because we had 250 people who were absolutely really looking forward to getting together and doing stuff together, because there are lots of things to sort out. There are lots of issues presently in the market at the moment that need proper conversations. And you don't go into a meeting and get a solution straight away. What you do is, as a collective, when you start talking to people, you get a voice of opinions. And the voice of opinions gives you a choice, and a choice gives you a solution. And that is the transition of what these events do for us in terms of support for businesses. So the members that attend bounce off each other, and they crack out ideas that to get to where they need to do, and the business happens. So from a point of view of what will it be like, I'm hoping that it disappears. I'm hoping, we can, reduce the time of travel, perhaps at the start of a conversation. But like Paul said, there is nothing like face-to-face. And the effect of business, and it needs to be, you need to build up a proper trust. You need, I love the analogy that Ian has said there in terms of getting to know people, trusting them, and then, and that is a fact. That is the transition that needs to be true. And I go back to values all the time, because this is why I set up BITA in the first instance. I think our generation, and I've said this before as well, we're responsible for the demise of proper practice. A good example is when we hand a tablet to a child and let them go into the corner to entertain themselves. That's no way to rear or educate a child, and we've become complacent as people, our generation in particular, in that regard. If you were talking about litter, we let people throw away litter and step over it. That's not the way to have a society. And these are the values that I think that we should readdress now. And an organization like ourselves promote these values and readdressing this type of activity, and being a bit more sensitive towards proper practice. So things like, manufacturing, for instance, is something that we've got to realize that if we are going forward in this country, we need to reinstill manufacturing at a high level. And we need to support it more importantly. So, everybody was driven towards the cheapest price, driven towards going to the likes of China for that cheaper price. Well, that's not the answer going forward. We can now see what it's done. Look what it's done to steel, 300%. It's crazy. And that's because they have a monopoly on the product, and that is the end result. So, we need to go back to thinking about, self-sustainability in every respect, the circular economy in its totality. and do things properly and go back to better practice. And better practice is where this starts. So, you can say the hard things. BITA as an organization, its hands aren't tied. I, as a person, will say it as it is, and I'm known for that. I also have the odd faux pas. I'm known for that too. But at the same time, it's the passion and delivery is what we're talking about here. And I think it's high time now that people should realize from this pandemic that there's massive changes need to come. Self-sustainability, manufacturing, supporting each other, collaboration. That's where it starts, guys.
You've touched on some pretty meaty themes there, Paul, I think, especially in a post-Brexit, post-pandemic world, civic pride, sustainability, standing on our own 2 feet, essentially shaping our own destiny, etc. All very, very interesting stuff. Let me come back to Paul M. and just touch on what you have seen with your business magazine. And, there's a phrase, there's no school like the old school. Some people say print is dead. I would disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think that it's very much alive. People love to get a magazine and read it and stay connected that way. What have you seen in terms of the interest in your publication over the last 12 months, Paul?
Well, since lockdown, obviously our advertising, because we're independently owned, our advertising went down because people just didn't know what the future was going to be. We knew, me and my business partner who owned the magazine, we knew we had to publish bi-monthly as we do, because if we didn't, we would lose face, would lose value in the brand. So we had to keep it going. So we said, let's not take any wages. Let's just keep printing the magazine, in the black, and just get it out there. And, through networking, through our connections, we got a lifeline from a global company. And the managing director said, Paul, we want to help you. We love your magazine. We know what you do. You support charities. You're a business community magazine. You're not a corporate, you're a business community magazine. We want to support you. And they brought pages off us. And then I turned it around and said, what about if you sponsor pages and we help the freelancers, those that slip through the cracks of the Chancellor's bailout? And so they paid for pages, and it was amazing to ring freelancers up and say, would you like a free advert? And they said, what's the catch? No catch. A company has paid for this for you. And that's the business community spirit. But we wouldn't have had that if we were stuck on Zoom. It was the face-to-face meeting. They knew the brand, they knew what we do. And that helped us to help businesses, to help people. And that's what we're all about, connecting, and so our value went up because of what we did. So it changed a lot of things. We're still in print, we're still online, we've got 15,000 subscribers. So, we don't miss a trick there. But, like Jeff Bezos, for, Amazon, he brought the Washington Post in 2013, and he believed in keeping that newspaper alive because he knew the value of it. And this is where media, newspapers go downhill, because they forget the community and they're all run by accountants. We run the business with our hearts. We're not going to be rich quick, but we're happy with what we do. We're really happy with what we do. And we run it with our hearts, not with the money.
Mm. Ian, reflecting on what's happened over the last 15 months, what have you learned going forward now from a business perspective and a personal perspective that will shape how you do business?
Wow. Have you got 3 hours? Frankie, where do you start? Like, I know it sounds awfully cliched and cheesy, but it's genuine community and sort of appreciating that no one's an island and that you need to be working with other people and collaborating. And, the old sum is greater than the parts, never has it been proven to be more true over the pandemic. I think the other thing linked into that, and what Paul was saying, even though Paul and I probably have some different views on some world things in other areas, I think I totally agree with him about the fact that what this has shown up about, we have to have infrastructure and supply and, things on the ground in our own countries. We can't rely on this worldwide supply chain that has relied on the Far East in particular. So I think I think it will fundamentally change most businesses. I'll give you an example. I'm sat here today, and I've had a new insulated roof put on my conservatory, and they've done the work in the last couple of days. Now it's ready for the finishing off inside. I got a call this morning saying the guys that were due out to come and sort of do the plastering of the walls inside and the boards, no plasterboard. So exactly what Paul was saying before, supply just, then I've had a call since back saying, they can come out to do the roof panels, but not the wall panels. So nobody can afford to get themselves into that position going forward where they're so hand to mouth. And I think just in time has been proven to be a risky strategy for many industries, particularly in the construction sector. So I think the construction industry and the wider business community will have to look at its supply chain, and will have to look at its how it does business and the strength and integrity of its supply chain. I think that's a key thing we're all going to learn from. I think in regards to personal, I think as we've touched upon all of us in passing, I think we've all had more than enough time in the early days of the pandemic to sit and really think about our lives. I know it sounds awfully cliche, but and so to think, what do we want from life? I mean, in my case, I changed business. I sold my half of the business last early summer because I decided that through personal circumstances I wanted to do in a different way. It's been the making of me, but I think it's made us all think long and hard about our personal situation. And I think the reason we're here today, as we touched upon before, is we like the community. It's almost like having communion, isn't it? Sort of attending BITA events. It's if you like the people and you like the organisation and you like the values, as Paul rightly said, and the morals, people buy people. It's been proven to be true. So I think online has helped accelerate some of those relationships. But I think we're all chomping at the bit to get back and meet, as Paul's indicated also. So I think we're all changed forever by this, aren't we? Business and personally. So there's so many areas that I think we'll all. If the lights were switched tomorrow and there was a cure for COVID, and within a week the world was back to normal, I don't think we're ever going to return to where we were. I think everybody's learned new things and new skills, and I think everybody's looked in their own souls and hearts, as Paul's touched upon, the thought, what do I really want from my business? What do I really want from my colleagues? Who do I want to associate with? I think that's one of the things. I think the less good people out there, I think we've all come to spot. I think we've all learned who our friends are. I think we've learned who we can count on. So I think it's, it'll shape us all for many years to come, if not the rest of our lives.
Paul W., would you agree with Ian's sentiments there?
Totally. I don't often agree with Ian totally, but there's always a first, isn't there? So yeah, a lot of what he's saying is common sense and truth, because no matter what we look at, it's that adjustment and that learning gives us the strength to go forward. And we all want to go forward. We all know that the bill has to be paid, and there's a massive bill behind us that is going to be the legacy for the next generation. So what we've got to do now is put our shoulder to the wheel and make that happen as well. But I go back to the inner sanctum of things, of the mind, in terms of how we think about things. We all got very busy, and we don't sit back and listen to people properly in terms of where we can improve our businesses. And if you take, for instance, what Ian has done and brought to the organization, the use and the proper use of something, i.e. LinkedIn in this regard, is fundamentally a great step forward in utilizing something that is actually very, very powerful and valuable for a business. So businesses suffer from this, where they get too busy fighting the fight, surviving, and they don't reach out or realize that there are organizations like us, but particularly that's what we're strong at, is finding that value for the pathway of a company. And that's what we pride ourselves on. And the ironic thing is, as we grow as an organization, that strength and value gets stronger as we grow. Because the way we're modeled is, we're not a membership gatherer. We only want people to join the community of BITA that understand the ethos and understand how we do these things. And what that does then, it's not exclusivity. What it is it is absolutely brilliant from a point of view of getting the right people in the right place to do the right thing at the right time. And that's what BITA prides itself in, not alone in one chapter, but in all chapters. And the reason we're able to do that is because we're able to set down our values, our missions, and our goals, and clearly communicate them to the various areas. You will have different cultures in how things are done. So for instance, in Liverpool and in Cork and in Galway and in Scotland, there are totally different cultural aspects of how business is done. But when you actually have the power to be able to cross-pollinate and create those synergies, that's when the magic happens. So we've seen, examples of Ocean Ore, a fantastic company in Cork that are involved in gathering fishermen's nets all over the world, breaking them down to pellet form, into fiber form, and making clothing. And we have now our BITA Masters Golf coming up, and every member playing golf that day will wear 14 bottles of plastic on their back, and there's the circular economy, and there's the full cycle. And that's what we promote, is that kind of perfection of completing the journey and giving people the resource to be able to make it happen. So I appeal to companies out there who are stressed out of their brains in different areas to come forward and talk to us, and talk to not just me, but the people within the community of BITA, to find out how they actually found their value within the organization and how they can actually potentially access that same value.
I'm very interested in what you said about influencing as a collective, Paul, and how does an organization like BITA start to do that on a much broader scale to shape some of those meaty themes that you raised there earlier, like sustainability and the circular economy, etc.?
Well, it's very important in terms how to approach something, and if you take, for instance, the labor shortage, which is an aspect that we are about to get involved in terms of bringing that collective together. So we're bringing several companies around the table, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion in terms of what needs to be done in people's eyes, and then have a representative who has the experience to bring this and lobby this to government. And that's what we can do as well, because the whole title of People Who Know People and Help People means that we can find all of these people with these different strengths and expertise to be able to do what we do. So when we bring that capital knowledge together and have that discussion, we can find little ways to actually improve things that then turn into bigger things. So if I go back to my plastic picking that I started in January, what that infused was the focus of a global forum. On the 18th and 19th of September this year, we will be involved in the biggest world clean as a result of that little thing that started that small, So it's being brave enough to go on the journey, but do so with process and do so with passion. And put these ideas and solutions out there. And no matter how small they are at the beginning, they will make a difference when they expand out. I believe that we could do a lot more in this country in terms of apprenticeships. I think that we could encourage and do a lot more encouraging the younger generation in particular to support industries like the construction industry, and advance the whole technology area, which is what their strength is. A lot of them are into their technophobes, whatever they want to call them, but they have a great understanding of that. And so let's enhance that. But what we've got to do is communicate with them and bring them down that path and tell them and show them that there could be a very, very good, valuable career for them. And it's doing these things, there's no one doing them at the moment. So that's where we need to start, at grassroots, with process, with passion, and deliver.
Paul M., Ian, you're both BITA members and very active. Reflecting on that from a member perspective, how have you seen this, the power of the collective within BITA manifest itself most clearly? Ian, maybe I'll start with you.
I'll probably go back to what I said before, John, that 13 months ago I knew of BITA, but wasn't a part of it. Joined through Liverpool, through a weekly meeting that we used to have, grew friendly and close to a number of people fairly quickly. Then went into coming on to the London meetings, which I remember starting for the first time and thinking I was a fish out of water, but then, sticking with it every week and getting to know people and finding them very welcoming. Latterly now, I now spend Tuesdays sat with Orla and her crew down in the southwest. Paul's a step too far at 4 o'clock on a Friday because that's beer o'clock normally. But I think we've all, just answering your question, it's just that sense of getting to know people and just feeling that wider association. And I've been involved in other networking groups, organizations, whatever, over the years. I can genuinely say, and I'm not being paid to say this, no one's got this spirit or the ethos of BITA. It's just like-minded people that seem to connect and have something that gets on. So, you either get it or you don't. And I think it's when you're in, you realize how powerful the collective is. And if you care for people, they'll normally care back for you. It's not rocket science at the end of the day. So it's good business and it's good, humanity, for lack of a better expression.
Paul M., your reflections on this?
Well, as I said to you before, that I knew about BITA 8 years ago when Teresa Grant mentioned it to one of my advertisers, and I didn't know too much about it. And then I was introduced about 2.5 years ago, and I met some great people, and the ethos that people that know people that help people. I thought, that's what I do. I do that anyway. I connect with the magazine, connect by nature, and I thought, I want in. So I was the dog with the wagging tail saying, let me in, let me in, let me in. Else I'll crawl underneath the fence, whichever. But yeah, now I'm part of it and I'm on the board for Manchester. I love it. And it's been great to do the Remo and Zoom in different areas and get to know people. But you can't beat the face-to-face. Today we've got the BITA Manchester, and a few of us are going to go to a hotel and have a few drinks and a chat and a catch up, share best practice knowledge. And then we're going to go to have the BITA meeting at 5 o'clock. And we're all just going to look at each other and just think, wow, not seen you for a while, And that's the human instinct in you. You want to be surrounded, a lot of people do, want to be surrounded by other people and share best practice knowledge and say, hey, I was speaking about you to so-and-so, You don't get that on Zoom, do you? You don't get it.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's a nice place to finish our conversation today. Gentlemen, consider us connected today. Paul M., I think you're absolutely right. The face-to-face meetings, everybody is thirsty for it, and what a novelty it will be once we start it again, and we will really appreciate it. Paul W., as ever, your strategic and helicopter view of where the organization is going, very welcome. Ian, your insights as well, much appreciated today. So gentlemen, this has been a bit of business. My name is John FitzGerald. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all very soon.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.